Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Two Player Mode, where we celebrate every facet of the gaming industry, from classic retro games to the latest technological advancements. Today, we're thrilled to have a special guest joining us, a dynamic gamer and streamer who has made a significant impact in the community with her engaging content and vibrant personality. Please welcome Kat from KalyptaGaming.
Hello, everyone.
So, Kat, you're known for your diverse range of gameplay and your ability to build a strong, positive community around your channel, which is, of course, called KalyptaGaming. And you've also become a beloved figure in the streaming world. So, like I said, everyone, in this episode, we'll dive into Kat's journey, exploring how she started, her favorite games, and the challenges she's faced as a female gamer. We'll also discuss her memorable moments on the stream, tips for building a successful community, and her thoughts on balancing life with a busy streaming schedule. So whether you're an aspiring streamer or a longtime gaming enthusiast, this conversation promises to be both insightful and inspiring. So Kat, let's start off with basically your origin story. Your channel has a strong presence with diverse content. Can you share what inspired you to start KalyptaGaming and how has your journey began and gone so far?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say it's the first time I hear myself described with such, brilliant language. It makes me feel so much cooler than I really am, probably. But
oh, come on.
it's a funny thing, actually, because I talk a lot about content creation. And the struggles that come with it, because it's often kind of underappreciated because you put a lot of yourself out there. You spend a lot of time, even streaming or creating content. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube, so most of the time it's you have a few people who, mostly friends, actually, who will appreciate what you do. But it's kind of hard to get that feedback from the strangers because with most content, people can stop by, people will throw you a like, maybe they will leave a comment, but you never really have a conversation about it.
Yeah, true.
So often you feel like you're just kind of throwing things into the void and hoping, that one day somebody will notice you exist, which is probably one of my biggest things in starting this journey was realizing that it's not about reaching people, it's about doing something that I love.
Yeah.
Because if you start focusing too much on, getting noticed or getting likes or even getting viewers as a streamer, you put so much pressure on yourself and you stop enjoying it.
Yeah.
Like at some point, I remember I was trying to stream every day for a week. I didn't last longer than that because I thought, well, everybody says to grow consistently, you have to be consistent with your content. And so I put this giant pressure on me to stream. It was a vacation, so I didn't have work. And I was like, great, I'm going to stream every day. And it burned me out so much. I was absolutely exhausted. I was miserable. I didn't even want to play the game anymore. I was streaming Elden Ring at the time. I was just starting. And it just made me unhappy. And I realized, I would love for this to be my job eventually. I don't necessarily want to be just a streamer or just a content creator. I would like to have something more. I love science, as you know. It's just part of my presence on Twitter in particular, or X. And I would love to combine the two. My big goal in life is to educate people as much as I can and to inspire people even, which is why I love challenge runs. And I'd like to have a conversation about psychology of gaming as well one day.
Oh,
and all of that, I think it's interesting and brilliant. And, so I have big plans.
Yeah, seems like it, definitely.
But it's definitely a slow journey. And that's another thing that a lot of times we don't realize,
Yeah.
And I realized very quickly that I can't focus on that. I can't focus on like the big picture, and I just have to focus on the day-to-day thing. And sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I have to make a post today because, I haven't checked in or whatever. People are going to forget I exist. And it's kind of sad almost because if you have a regular job and you wake up, and maybe you're a bit late or you're taking a sick day, it's enjoyable,
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
yes, I don't have to work today. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to watch my favorite show. Maybe you're sick, so maybe you're not enjoying yourself that much, but whatever. You're still,
You don't have to work. Yeah.
You're not working. But here, every time I have a vacation or a weekend with the family or with the friends, in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I'm not posting, I'm not creating content, I'm not out there, I'm missing out on this growth. And this has been the biggest challenge, is dialing it back and actually realizing, there's always going to be a million people out there creating content. You're not really competing, you're not really trying to fight for the same spotlight. We're just trying to have our own community of friends. It's and that's what in the past couple months has been a huge change for me in my creative space. Is that I've actually made friends with people online that have become huge pillars of support for me. And I realized that this is what it's all about. It's not about having a million viewers on stream, or, having crazy engagement. It's just about having those friends that are there, that show up for you, that support you, that are happy for you, or, cry with you. So it's been great in that regard.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned the community building. So what strategies have you found most effective in helping you foster the positive and engaged community on your channel?
Well, once again, you make me sound so fancy, but I have like five loyal followers, but
hey, five is great. I mean, if that's all I had following me, I'd be happy.
No, but I think the biggest thing for me is actually, not treating it as a job or as a way to engage with people, but treating it as you would treat friends, or a community of people you respect. Yeah. For me, it's been the biggest, I think, stepping stone in creating some sort of presence, because I realize people are responding to who I am, not who I am pretending to be, not some persona I've created, but just generally who I am every day. Sometimes my posts are silly, sometimes they're science, sometimes, it's my crazy challenge runs. But at the end of the day, it's always me behind it. And the same way I interact with people who, who comment or engage with my content, I talk to them as I would to a friend. I don't consider it as, I don't hide behind some mask of an online personality, which I think happens a lot. And I think it works in a lot of cases. I mean, a lot of it is entertainment, so it's kind of like an actor or a character, and they are there to entertain. But to me, I've never really wanted that. I wanted to be myself because it's not always easy also to be yourself, I think.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And
that is very true.
So it was a bit of a challenge in that regard. And so actually, sorry, I ramble a lot.
It's okay.
I talk a lot. I think you asked me about how I got started. And that's actually one of the interesting things for me. I was actually a scientist before. I did my PhD in animal biology, and I was working with small mammals and looking at effects of environment on their populations. So it was a very different than gaming content creation. Meanwhile, I always played video games. I started not as young as most people. I'm realizing now I'm actually like really far behind, because I grew up in Ukraine, and in the 90s we didn't really have computers outside of workplaces. The only game I played was Tetris. So I didn't get my personal computer until I moved to Canada, and it was in like 2002, I think, that I got it, and or 2001, I'm not sure. And it kind of opened the gates of gaming for me. There was
Mhm.
Morrowind, there was later Oblivion,
Nice. Yes.
StarCraft, Warcraft, all the classics, and as like Diablo 2 later on as well. And I realized there was this brilliant world out there, but it was always just fun. It was fun. It's like reading a book. I used to read a lot, and then I started playing games instead because some of them actually, it's you should read books. It's very good for you.
Definitely read books, but then also play games. Yeah.
But gaming is actually, it can be can tell quite an exciting story. And the great thing about it is that it's immersive. So instead of just imagining a character, you're actually being a character. And you are seeing your choices unfold in front of you. You feel like much more connected, I think, to the events and to the characters. So, which is why I replaced gaming with books. Sorry, books with gaming. Sorry. Yes, so I replaced books with gaming, and but it was just a hobby, And then actually I started my studies for my biology degree, and I met a lot of friends who played World of Warcraft.
Oh, okay.
And so I actually got into it before. And what happened is I was just playing, casually. I had my character. I had a night elf, I think, running around, with a tiger, whatever. I made a hunter, of course. And then I met these friends, and they were like hardcore raiders, and they were doing PvP and everything. And they were like, "Whoa, you should roll a horde character, because horde is the best, clearly." How and join us. And I was like, okay, why not? So I rolled. And they made me roll a priest because they're like, oh, we need healers for the team. And I was like, well, this is a little bit boring. I prefer my hunter with a tiger, but fine, I will do it for the team. And from that moment on, I was completely hooked, because I realized that there is challenge. Like, there's this brilliant challenge in gaming. I remember the raids. It was the first time I played a social game.
Okay.
And trying to coordinate, with other people, like, 20, 40, whatever other people to all accomplish a task together. For me, it was mind blowing. I've never cooperated with that many people in my life. Okay, you play a board game with like 3 other people. It's fun, but it's 3 other people. Here, it's like 40 people. It's like an army, I felt like I was like this cool superhero, working to save the universe or something. And I felt the thrill, the thrill of, downing the boss after like 100 attempts, or, winning the PvP match, like on the edge of your seat. And I realized that this was not just a hobby anymore. It was my identity. It's actually the first time I tried streaming was back long ago, before it was cool. Before everybody was doing it, There was like 3 female streamers at the time or something like this. And I tried doing it. I streamed WoW for a while, and it was great. But I felt I didn't really feel myself in it. I tried to be someone else, maybe not exactly the person I was. And also, when you're younger, you've experienced that in your life too. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you want to be. I mean, I wasn't 18. I was in my 20s, but still, we still discover ourselves at that time. Yeah. And so I think, in a way, I'm happy I didn't continue because I was starting my PhD at the time, and I was busy. I was never at home, so it was complicated to manage. And I'm kind of happy, actually, I took a break, because it allowed me to figure out who I really am and what I want to do, with the streaming. Like, I don't want to just be, popular and have viewers and, get sponsorships. I want to actually create a conversation about things I care about. And even though, it's much harder to do when you're just sitting by yourself at home, but it's much easier when you can establish a community and you can get people actually talking about things. And sometimes you discover, when you thought you were completely alone and very different from others, all of a sudden you discover that there are so many other people like you. Yeah. And they all looking for the same things as you. It's just feeling of belonging, feeling of, being understood, of being able to express yourself and have a conversation without, worrying about what the other person will say or think. And I think for me, this is the beautiful thing about content creation, like streaming or just even, YouTube videos or Twitter X, is the community. It's the human aspect that comes with
I gotcha.
it.
I understand. I understand completely. One of the things you mentioned that I want to touch on a little bit was you said back in the day when you were streaming, there was maybe 3 other female streamers. Well, now today that's changed a lot, of course.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine that there's still some of those, you still face some of those same challenges as a female streamer or gamer that must have been around back then. How have you had to deal with those, and how do you keep a positive momentum going while dealing with those, I guess?
Yeah, so for me, I've been pretty lucky. I'm not, I'm just starting out, so I don't have like a huge number of viewers, and most people who come by my streams are friends or people I know from social media. So I haven't really had a lot of negativity or
good.
Harassment or whatever you want to call it that some people face. And even back in the day, it was once again, I had a very strong support group of like guild mates and like real life friends who were coming by the streams. I think what's changed for me also is that I'm much more conservative with my presence online. When I was younger, like in your 20s, you don't really care about much. I often talk about, look at my cleavage streamers of these days, and they existed back then too. And I might have been that at some point of my life too. And because it gets you the views, it gets you the attention, it preys on the most basic human instincts, which I understand as an evolutionary biologist.
You understand that, yeah?
I understand it really well. That said, I am, once again, I believe everybody should do what they want to do. They should live their life how they want to live their life, and if they want to attract viewers a certain way, it's great for them. Unfortunately, I think it has a bit of a negative impact on females in streaming or content creations in general, because it kind of sets the tone that it creates a bit of a conflict, because you have these women who say we want to be taken seriously and we want to be on equal footing with the guys, but the guys they don't stream topless. Well, actually, maybe some do. I don't know. I haven't seen them. But most of the popular male streamers, or the ones at least I knew at the day, back at the day, or followed. I don't really follow a lot of popular stuff these days. They were there because they were really good. Like it was the guy who would like one shot a boss, or who do like a naked run, not naked, but like without gear, or who would have like all these like super extreme PvP strategies, and we watched them for that. We watched them because we wanted to learn, because we respected their skill. It was just fun. And, sometimes, maybe they were toxic. Sometimes they were maybe not the nicest guys in the world, but they had something that, elevated gaming. It elevated gaming with their skill. And then at the same time, there were a lot of women who were very, very good at video games as well, but they were drowned out by girls with big boobs, like it's kind of and I'm not saying those girls with big boobs weren't good gamers. Some of them were, some of them were very good gamers, and they had skill, and, they attracted people with their cleavage, and then they showed them that actually, hey, I'm actually very capable of what I'm doing. But that said, they still used something that's not gaming to attract the viewers. And for me, that was always the issue, because if you want to be taken seriously for your skill, you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Right? In a reality. And if you start using something else and then you start getting sexist remarks, I'm sorry, but it's on you. I'm gonna be flamed for this. I'm gonna be like canceled on Twitter for saying this because everybody believes, you should be able to do whatever you want and have no consequences. I don't believe in that. I think there are consequences for every action you take. So
True.
if you start putting yourself out there in a certain way, you will get a certain kind of attention. And you know that you will be getting it because otherwise you wouldn't be putting yourself out there this way, right? So I'm all about being fair. So I'm not saying that, I'm not excusing men who are being pigs or being assholes or whatever. I think that's not a right behavior.
Right.
Let's get it out there. But, I'm also saying that we should kind of take responsibility for what we are doing online ourselves.
Understood.
And I think that, for a lot of women, like for me, I dread the day. So I don't stream with camera on. I will probably once I have, it's kind of the next step. But I feel like it kind of filters a little bit the people who are coming to my stream.
I
do it, and I do it because of this unwanted attention that some female streamers are getting. And I think that, I'm not blaming the girls, the cleavage girls for this, but I'm not exactly saying that it's helping either. It doesn't help because it's out there. So there are a lot of people seeking it. And unfortunately, some of us get, caught in the crossfire of this. Whereas all of us, most people I know, most female streamers I know, they just want to be out there, beating bosses in challenge runs or, showcasing their skill or just, playing games same way as their buddies do and just having a good conversation about it with chat. And but we have to fight for it. We have to fight for it because there is this still stigma of either you suck or you're there for sex, And it's
didn't know. You're right. And that's one of the reasons I brought it up is that stigma of a female gamer is there. And I really despise it because I have 3 nieces and who really love video games and they play all the time and they're really good. So if they ever decide to do anything streaming wise or like that, I'd hate for them just to be picked apart just for their looks or because they're female. That I want them to be respected for what the gaming skills they bring. So,
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it's changing in a way because there is more and more. But I don't think it's changing because people are talking about it. Because I think sometimes when you talk about it, it just makes things worse because it makes people mad and it's, drawing out a lot of hornets that, we don't want necessarily to deal with. Because the problem is, you can't change human nature. There's always going to be assholes. There's always going to be people who are not nice. Even some people, who might not necessarily be horrible in real life, somehow online they come around and because they are hidden because anonymity filter, they are living out these horrible fantasies of being a bad person. And unfortunately, that is never going to change because this is part of human nature. And what's happening is as more and more people are coming online, you're getting faced with more and more of these people. You can't filter who is coming to your streams. You will never be able to filter who is there. And as much, as we want to block everybody and silence everybody, it's never going to happen because full censorship and full control is never a good idea. So unfortunately, it's always going to exist. So it's one of these sad truths in that, you just have to hope, that somehow it will get filtered out. Maybe they will get tired of it. Maybe.
My hope would be that with the positive community you're building and that you have that support system, like you mentioned, around yourself, that those people there will be the buffer for those trolls coming online.
Exactly.
That those people will be the ones that will shut those people out. And, so you can concentrate on doing what you do and other female gamers can concentrate on what they're doing and not have to worry about that noise. So the rest of the community will, I don't want to say protect, but they'll be your shield in a way.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a very good point because I think instead of focusing on the negatives and all of these horrible situations that come about, a good thing is to instead focus on the positivity, because the more positivity you have out there, the less opportunities those trolls and negative people have to come around. Like for me, I don't have a huge following, but I still have enough people that sometimes I get quite a lot of comments and quite a lot of interactions with my post, and I honestly never had like a horrible experience, knock on wood or whatever. I know it's coming. I know it's coming to everyone, but mainly because I don't engage in drama. I'll say it all the time on Twitter. It annoys me actually, because people will come around and they will cry because today they only saw like negative takes or like trolls in their comments, but meanwhile they post hot takes all the time.
Yeah.
Don't engage. Like what you're posting something is going to rile them up.
Yeah,
you're
true.
doing it because it's going to get you engagement, because Twitter algorithm is simple. It looks at comments. So if I post something, the more comments I have, the more exposure I get. That's all. It's looking at conversation, even though most of the time comments are not really conversation. It's just people responding.
I know.
But it's simple. So people know how to game it. I know how to game it. I just don't do it because I don't want to. But you can post something that's interesting, and you will get 3 people actually engaging in conversation with you because they're interested in it. The problem is, internet is a wide space, so you have people with very diverse interests, and what you find interesting, most people probably don't. However, everybody likes to argue.
Yeah,
everybody loves drama. So if you post, I think Xbox sucks, whoa, all of a sudden you have a viral tweet, because people are going to read that and they're going to be like, what? I play on Xbox. This guy doesn't like what I do. I have to respond to this. Meanwhile, if I put something like, what is the psychology behind the challenge runs that people engage in Elden Ring? People will be like, oh, that's an interesting topic, but it's too complicated and it takes too long to respond. So I'm just going to ignore it,
Yeah.
And this is the basis of internet. It's simple. People respond without thinking. And the more you do that, the more conflict you get, because, I might say something. I have to filter what I say online all the time. Not because I don't want to state my opinion, but because I have to state it carefully. Like I've said things today in this interview, that if I post it just out of context, if I just post a line, it will get me canceled. I always like to say it, because people don't think, people react.
Yeah.
Internet is a reaction space. It's the same as, all the big drama that happens online. It's not because people are actually inherently mean. It's because people react without thinking.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's easier to just keep going with your bullshit than to actually go back and say, oh shit, I actually made a mistake. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't mean it. So, and that's all it is, and so for me, the best way to avoid any real drama is just not to engage in it. Afterwards, sometimes it comes after you. But then, sometimes I get comments that are kind of questionable. I just don't engage. I just let them go. Because I don't know if the person posted it because they really mean it, if they just don't speak very well, don't express themselves very well sometimes. Sometimes people just have a really rude tone in messages, but at the end, you chat with them and you realize they mean really well. It's just how they sound.
Yeah.
Also, sarcasm, humor, a lot of these things, they don't come across very well online.
Absolutely correct. Right. That's true. And all Xbox fans out there who might be listening to this, that was said in context. Pat does not really think that Xbox sucks.
Well, actually, I don't. No, actually, I don't. I have nothing against consoles, but I am a PC gamer. I own 0 consoles. I don't have a controller. I play with mouse and keyboard. And I think PC gamers are the real ones. No.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my next question for you. Your gaming setup. So you run a PC gaming system, and no consoles, you just said, which is interesting. I've done both. I've started out, back in the day on a Commodore 64 all the way up to building my own PCs. Now I'm on a Mac, but I've played Nintendo, I've played Genesis, I played Dreamcast, Xbox, and PlayStation 5 now, which is what I run just because I don't have the time to figure out if my computer will have meet the requirements or whatnot to run a certain game. So I just stick to something I know is going to work for me every time I turn it on. But with that being said, your gaming setup, do you have it set up a particular way that maybe might be different than anyone else?
Actually, probably because I have a gaming laptop.
Okay, that works. Yeah.
I used to have a proper desktop, but it was outdated, which is the issue with PC gaming. And I also since I stopped being a wildlife biologist, I moved to France a few years back, and which is why I changed my career and I went into web development. Actually, because. During my wildlife biology phase, I did a lot of programming for data analysis, so it kind of followed along that I enjoyed it and it worked well together. So I changed I changed my career to web development, and so I bought a nice laptop for work that was also kind of like a gaming laptop because it's like, well, I'm not just gonna buy any laptop,
right?
But it's not like a fancy; it's like a Dell gaming laptop, it runs, pretty much everything. Cool. I couldn't run Dragon's Dogma 2, apparently, based on the specs. It was just the graphics RAM that was too low. But otherwise, it runs everything, and I've always kind of been poor, I guess. So I've never had, fancy, which is one of the reasons I never had consoles growing up. Again, in Ukraine, it was out of the question. But in Canada, it was just, there were better things to spend money on. And I was happy with the PC because I could play so many games. And back at the day, they were all just pixels. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You didn't need that powerful of a machine. And so finally, eventually, I started investing a bit more money into my computer to be able to play better games. But that was it. It's just I couldn't really invest into my computer and buy consoles, and I was too much a PC gamer by then. I loved all my games were on a PC, like all the RTS games. Like WoW. I didn't really need a console for anything, honestly.
There you go.
And so for me, that's why I remained a PC gamer. And now it's getting better and better because more and more games, like console games, are getting ports, so it's even better timing. The problem is it's still very expensive. It's still very expensive. And true, you can build a good system, without breaking the bank. But, you still have to upgrade it. And it's, you still have to keep up with it.
It's expensive, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, especially with the price of games as well. I'm always amazed. I feel like I don't know how rich everybody is, but everybody buys every new game that comes out. And I'm like, I don't know, like it's $100 every time, like right. Not 100, but whatever, like 70, 60, they're all super expensive now, like especially if you buy deluxe editions. And I'm like, oh my God, like every week somebody's buying a new game. And I'm like, I don't understand. I'm here like farming Steam sales to be able to play things. And like, I'm doing okay in life, but it's just, it's funny because I often, and you see people's gaming setups, as a streamer and things like this, and it's beautiful. I'm so jealous. Like people have dedicated rooms with giant screens and lights and all these accessories, and I'm there with like my little laptop. I do have like nice mouse and keyboard or whatever, but I'm here with my little laptop tapping along. It was like I have my office like where I work, where I also game, but. That's about it. So I am a very uncool streamer. Like the day I stream, with the camera and show people my setup, they'll be like, "Who is this poser? Like that's not a real streamer. Where are the lights?
Right. Where are your lights at? Where's the fence? Where's the 3 screens at?"
Yeah. Well, the extra screen would be nice, but I do need to edit even for development. I had an extra computer actually I was using for the second screen at the time. But I like to say I'm a gypsy gamer. I'm not being, whatever I feel now, like it's racist to say too. I don't know. I don't know what we're allowed to say these days, but I say it about everything I do, in the sense that like I'm a very simple person. Like I don't do, I kind of like a MacGyver most of the time.
I hear you. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, when I was building my computers, I would take pieces from here, there, make it work.
Yeah, exactly. So you just make it work, and as long as it runs. I always call it a potato, but it's a good potato. It's like a yam. It's probably more of a yam than a potato.
Well, you mentioned your work and whatnot. So between work, your personal life, and streaming career, how do you balance all that out? And do you have any advice for others who might be, trying to balance it as well?
It is really complicated. It's complicated because I'm married, so I try to spend. We don't have kids, but I do try to spend a lot of time with my husband. Like I never stream or play video games on weekends, for example, because it's our time together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the evenings, also, we have dinner, we go for hikes, we go out, we have our life.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually makes things a little bit complicated because prime streaming time is often in the evening when people are available, or on the weekends. But it's also one of the decisions I made, in that I've never wanted work to take over my life, no matter what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think streaming is really bad at that. Like when you see a lot of people, it's their whole life, it's their identity. Mm-hmm. And which is why I always say I don't want to be a streamer, because I don't want that to be my life. I would like that to be my job, but I don't want that job to take over everything in my life. And an interesting thing for me was setting this boundary and realizing, I might be trading some growth or some success by doing that, but at the same time, I keep my sanity a little bit.
Yeah.
For work, I work from home. With my development, so most of my work I do at home. And I also do, a bunch of side businesses with English classes and things like this. So it's pretty modulable, so I can change my schedule quite easily, which is why sometimes I have to cancel a stream. But at the same time, I can also, stream on some days when, if I finish work early. So it's quite convenient in that regard. So I do recognize that I'm lucky. I'm also not pressured, to make, a certain number of money per month, because, I have a partner who supports me in that regard. So I have luck on my side there. However, it's also a bit more complicated, because I don't just, I'm trying to develop multiple things, and I'm trying to develop my business as well as a streaming. So I feel like I never have a break to not think about stuff. I'm always planning, I'm always planning the next step. So even if I'm not streaming, if I'm not working, when I say I'm spending, time away on the weekends, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still taking notes of like, oh, next week I should do this. Oh, this is a good idea for content, or like for my business. I'm like, oh, I have to finish my website. And so it's always, it's like, I love it because I don't want to do just one thing. I think I would be bored. But
me too. Mm-hmm.
Which is why I enjoy it. Like content creation is perfect for that, because you have so many avenues, you can produce so many different things. But at the same time, it's so tiring, because you're always thinking about it. You're always thinking about the next, great idea, how to achieve something, and so it's a little bit tiring in that regard.
It can be, yeah.
But definitely, I think my advice for most people would be to really to keep, to not give it all, because even though I think it might help you in a short term to get somewhere, but you see so much burnout. You see so much burnout with streamers and content creators, and it's as fun and as glorious it could be. Your life's not worth it. Because tomorrow we might all of this might collapse. Maybe we won't have internet anymore. Like, who knows? Like, who knows what happens tomorrow? Yep. And it's, your friends and your family is what matters the most. They will be there even when, the world turns into apocalypse. Well, unless they turn on you, but, hopefully you have good friends. But I know this is kind of dramatic. But saying that, I'm not saying it's going to be apocalypse, but I'm just saying that, things, your career can always take, a turn for the worst. And especially streaming, it's so volatile, like these things, today you're popular, tomorrow you're not. So putting, like, of course you should put as much energy into it as you can and as you possibly can, but you shouldn't give up everything for it.
Yeah.
And I think, especially for young people, I think it's really important. Like, people give up their education, people give up, alienate their family, people, isolate themselves. And it's, you see constantly these stories of, like online friendships that exploded, but I think it's a normal thing to ground yourself.
Yeah.
Because the online world, it's fun and it's very exciting, but it's also, it's not real a lot of the times.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
And so always try to keep your feet on the ground, I think, is the main lesson.
One of my favorite books is Ready Player One. And at the end of it, he really mentions that, you got to step outside and get sun. And, it's the only place where you can get a real meal. So I always do that in the back of my head. It's like, the gaming is great. The streaming is great. Interacting is great, but it's all virtual. You got to go outside and, touch grass, I guess.
Yeah, it's really funny, actually, this, the touch grass stuff, because I am, being the biologist before. And as growing up, I was always in nature, like doing hikes and going to the mountains. And, for me, it's my true happiness. I do, like, we travel a lot. So I always, and on the weekends, I always try to get outside, because to me, it's therapy, being, when you're in the forest or by the coast or in the mountains. It's
Absolutely
the feeling you have. Like, I always say, it's a little bit complicated, I think, because I love video games. They're a big part of me, but they're just one part of me.
Yeah, there you go.
I think, and I think a lot of people make it their whole identity, which is good for them. But I think it's always good to have variety in your life, because it makes you appreciate things more. Like, for example, I was in Slovenia in February, and we went to this little village in the mountains, and it looked exactly like a set from Witcher 3, like the game and the show. And I remember I was like taking pictures and making videos, and I was telling myself, oh my God, this is like Geralt is gonna come in on a horse. And he's looking at me, he's like, what are you talking about? He did watch the show, like he knows he didn't enjoy it as much as me, but, and I was like, but this is amazing, because I appreciated the place already on its own, because it was absolutely remote. It was super isolated. It felt surreal to be there already. And then on top of that, it was like Witcher 3, and so I remember thinking, wow, I'm so lucky. I'm walking through here. I wish I brought my Siri cosplay, like, wow, this would have been amazing. And it made me realize, like, it's, video games, they're not just my life, they enhance my life, because, I can appreciate so many more different things apart from video games. And I kind of, that's another thing I always wish, to talk about and to promote with my content, is that, life is not just video games, as much as we love them, which doesn't make me very popular with the algorithm, because it doesn't understand, why am I posting like these nature landscape shots or talking about astrophysics. Here I'm like, no, you post about Elden Ring, post about Elden Ring. Oh no, you're posting about, going for a hike in the mountains. But I think it's nice, because, a lot of us, we follow certain accounts for our hobbies, and it's always very one-dimensional, but we are not one-dimensional people. Most of us, we have, we are hard to define with just one word. We are not just a gamer or just a scientist, or just a friend or just an entertainer. Like we have so many aspects to us, and it saddens me that when you're in a niche of some sorts, it's only that, because I think it loses a lot of interest. Like for me, I love seeing other like scientist streamers, for example, because often they will talk a bit about their work or about their experience, because it's not the same as like somebody who is I don't know, a writer or or a game developer.
Right.
We have different appreciation and different perception of the game, and that's what it's interesting for me. It's not just to see a person playing a game; it's seeing their view of it, their take of it, their personal experience.
Yeah.
And often I think people limit themselves in their expression also, because they know how the algorithm works. So you have to always do the same thing, and you have to follow these rules, and you have to say these things. And so I would love for it to be more diverse. Like I would love for I would love for not to follow a gaming account, but follow an account of a person who does all of these things and also games at the same time.
Yeah, I hear you.
That, unfortunately, I don't know when that will happen. Maybe I can petition Elon Musk, be like, hey, buddy, your algorithm works. Okay. So like, let's stop tunnel visioning into things. Let's try and diversify the interest groups a little bit. But
there you go. Well, I'm glad you shared your real life memorable moment about being in the village over there. But what I really want to hear for you, and I think this would be my final question that I have for you, is can you recall a standout moment from your streaming that had a lasting impact on you, whether it was a milestone achievement, maybe a community interaction, or something that was unexpected?
Well, so I've only been streaming for a short time. So I will answer in two parts. So
okay.
One part for me, it's not about, so this is not a streaming part, but this is when I was playing WoW, and we were going for Lich King in Wrath of the Lich King expansion with my guild. And we were at him for 4 weeks, like I don't know how long. And I remembered because it was winter time and there was no heating in my house. I'm not sure why. It was the week the heating broke. And I had a giant hat, a scarf. I think I was like in a coat. I had my dog sleeping on me to keep me warm. And I remember we were out there with Lich King. And I remember that the moment he fell, I remember I jumped and I screamed so loud. I'm pretty sure the windows shook. I know this comes out all the time about windows shaking, but I do scream very loud. So, and I remember my dog actually started barking because I think he was like really stressed. And then I realized, so we were recording with my friend, and I realized I had this video of me in this giant hat with a scarf, and like I didn't have gloves, but I think I had mittens, like this cut off fingers or something like this. Like I was jumping like this in my house, and I honestly, for me, he took a picture, my friend, and I was like, I remember looking at it and being like, this is my life. This is who I have become. I'm a homeless person jumping around and screaming because there's no heating in the house. Like, I don't know when it's going to come back, but because I've just downed, like some pixels on the screen. And but it made me so happy. It was honestly the happiest moment. I felt like, this was the biggest amount of warmth I could have achieved. And I remember cheering with everybody on, we were using Vent at the time, I think. And like we were, before Discord days, and we were, everybody was cheering, and like I think somebody brought out champagne. I don't know, like it was absolutely brilliant. And it's just that moment, because it was so simple. Like there was no glory, it wasn't some like race to world first, or like even, it wasn't some stream where, there's 100 people. It was just friends celebrating together. And I was so miserable, and yet I was so happy. It was a brilliant memory. Anyways, so that will forever remain one of my favorite boss kills. And for the stream, I've had a lot of really great moments actually with Elden Ring, because every boss kill is a rush.
Oh yeah, I've tried Elden Ring. It's daunting. Yeah.
But a good thing for me is so when I was fighting Margit, the first boss, it took, as you know, it took me 17 hours because I'm doing my challenge run and I've never played this game before. It took me a while to click in. And, I had to, I thought I wouldn't have anybody come by my streams for like a really long time, but I actually had, a bunch of people who were coming by to support me because they knew it was my first time playing. And, it's people I met online, like they've become my friends, and it was really lovely. But I remember I think it was after 10 hours or so of attempts. I think it was day 2 or 3 of streaming this. I was starting to lose my mind. It took a while, but I was asking people to make to help me like feel better and make some jokes. And once again, I don't really expect people to interact in the chat, when they come by. Sometimes I think it's, people do it to support me. So like they will tune in, but they're not really there. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, everybody was there. And everybody, like there was like all these people, and they were just making these most ridiculous jokes, like about, my favorite was that, mayflies, they have like really short lifespans. And somebody was like, oh, the lifespan of a mayfly is still longer than your attempt at Margaret, like it was things like this. And it was all a bunch of like scientific facts and like things that were thrown in to make me laugh. And I just, it meant so much because I realized like these people, they care, because they didn't just make any kind of joke. They make jokes they knew that would care about, that I would like. And, and and they were, suddenly they all appeared, like, there wasn't a lot of activity for a while. And then, I just said, guys, let me hear some jokes, because I'm going insane here. And all of a sudden, all of these people just showed up, and it was, it almost made me cry, because I never expected that. I never expected that people would care about me, like some random person on the internet beating some random boss, enough to like be there and try to make me feel better. And honestly, it's one of my most, it was at the very beginning too, and it will forever remain with me, because it made me realize also, once again, the power of community, the power of the friends we make, and of the people that are there, and every time, when people say, I've really enjoyed your stream, it was really fun, I laughed a lot, and it changes me also, because I realize that what I do actually improves somebody's day. Like maybe, maybe it doesn't solve their issues, but, it makes them smile, it makes them entertained. And sometimes we talk about more serious things. Maybe it helps somebody to just vent about things that happened in their life, but at the end of the day, it's a support network. Yeah,
absolutely. That is a great story. Thank you for sharing that. that just made me feel all warm, and just imagining being there. That's really cool to have your community show up for you in that moment, and just it like you said, it proves the power of community and people who are there to root for you and keep it positive. And that's just so awesome. That was just so wonderful. Well, Kat, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to chat with us here at 2Player Mode. We really appreciate it. Everyone out there, be sure to go follow Kat and KalyptaGaming. I think you're just KalyptaGaming on most social medias, right?
Correct.
YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X. Go follow KalyptaGaming. I'll put a link down in the description of this episode. But yeah, thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat with you.